Good evening there, everybody. What is happening? Hopefully, y'all are having a wonderful day today. So, anyways, man, I thought that I would talk about this fight that apparently has recently been announced. And of course, the fight that I'm talking about, for those of you that have not heard the news or have not heard of this fight, the fight that I'm talking about is Rolly Romero, or Riley Romero, however you pronounce his name. I'm not necessarily sure. I've heard it pronounced differently. But apparently, Rolly Romero, or Mr. Romero, he is going to be facing Gervonta Tank Davis next. And I think all in all that Gervonta Tank Davis, in my personal opinion, I think that Gervonta Tank Davis is one of the most talented fighters that I've seen, certainly in a very, very long while. He probably is the most talented fighter in those lower weight divisions, at least in my opinion. I'm not exactly sure where Tank Davis actually belongs in terms of weight because he is a guy all in all that is only about 5'6", and I believe only has about a 67-inch reach, which isn't bad actually for his height, but he's not going to outreach a whole bunch of guys, especially if he continues to fight at 140 pounds. But with his skill set, if Gervonta Tank Davis, if he is going to eventually become top 5 pound for pound on my pound for pound list, he is probably going to have to beat some of those guys at 140 pounds, or at least defeat a multitude of A-grade fighters at 135. And we'll have to see what happens. I think Gervonta Tank Davis, I think that he's a very talented fighter. I'm not necessarily sure if right now he would be on my top 10 pound for pound list. Excuse me. And a certain amount of people would ask me, well, why is that? Well, the reason why is because even though I think Gervonta Tank Davis, I think that he certainly is otherworldly talented. I think that he really is truly one of the greatest talents that I've seen in a very, very long while. And he is a very dominant fighter. The problem is that, once again, if I rank my pound for pound list, and if you watch my channel for a while, and if you've heard me rank my pound for pound fighters, resume is the first thing that, in my opinion, has to be counted. That's always the first thing that has to be counted because that tells me how you react to A-grade competition. We can take a look at Mike Tyson and say Mike Tyson was physically one of the most gifted heavyweights of all time. We can say all in all that he looked extremely skilled, he looked extremely fast, he looked extremely strong. He even looked, like he had the skills to pay the bills. But every single time Mike Tyson, every single time he went in the ring against an A-class fighter, he pretty much lost. He lost to Evander Holyfield. He lost to Buster Douglas. Of course, Buster Douglas, he wasn't really an A-grade fighter, but he just had a style for that one night that proved to be very, very difficult for Mike Tyson. And I don't think Mike Tyson trained very well for Buster Douglas anyway, so it is what it is. I don't think he took him very seriously. And of course, he also lost to Lennox Lewis as well. My point being is this: Gervonta Tank Davis, I think all in all that Gervonta Tank Davis really has the possible potential to become the future number one pound for pound fighter. But I don't know how you're going to become the number one pound for pound fighter by facing certain guys like Mario Barrios and Rolly Romero. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're talented in some areas, but these are not A-grade fights. The Mario Barrios fight, I thought, was about a 70-30 fight, 80-20 fight, and that's a pretty big disparity in terms of percentages. Mario Barrios, in my opinion, he is never going to be an A-grade fighter. Mario Barrios is never going to win one of the official belts, in my opinion, at 140 unless that division is very, very watered down. Mario Barrios, in my opinion, is probably not even a top 4, top 5 guy in that division. And some people, they may say, oh, well, I disagree with that. Well, let's just run through some of the guys that are there. When we talk about Josh Taylor, Jose Ramirez, Regis Prograis, Victor Postal, is he really above those guys? I can't say that for sure that he's above any of those guys. Who has he ever beaten? Excuse me, in my opinion, to be above any of those guys. And then you have to take a look at guys like Jose Zapita and even Ivan Baranchek. Now, in my opinion, he would probably beat those guys. But then you also got this new dude in that division who looked very, very good. He beat Ivan Baranchek in the last fight. That was on the Jake Paul versus Tyron Woodley undercard. He fought very, very well. I was very impressed with that dude. He looked very, very good. I think he even knocked Ivan Baranchek out, even though he doesn't have a great list of knockouts. But that kid is very, very talented. I can't remember the kid's name, but that kid's very talented. He would now probably have to be in the top 5. I don't think Mario Barrios would beat him either. So my point being is this: Gervonta Tank Davis, even though he puts on an interesting performance, and even though I think that he certainly is one of the most skilled fighters in the world, he's fought a very, very limited range of champions. I mean, I don't necessarily know how many fights Gervonta Tank Davis has on his resume as of right now, but I believe it's almost getting to that 25 range. And when we talk about official champions that Gervonta Tank Davis has actually fought, that have held a title, and I'm not talking about an interim title. I'm not talking about a continental title, because those are not real titles. All right, those are not real titles. When we talk about actually the official champions that Gervonta Tank Davis has actually faced, he has only faced 2 champions throughout his whole entire career. I guess 3 if you want to count Yuriorkis Gamboa, but let's just be real. Yuriorkis Gamboa was basically at the bottom of the barrel at that point in time in his career. I mean, do you really even want to mention him when it comes down to it? So I guess 3 if you really want to go into it. But he faced a very, very poor version of Yuriorkis Gamboa. He overall beat Leo Santa Cruz, which I thought was a very decent fight, so I give him a lot of credit for that one. And then overall, you beat Jose Pedraza. And that's pretty much your resume when it comes down to it. I think Gervonta Tank Davis, I think that, excuse me, I think that he's extremely talented. But beating this kid, Rolly Romero, I don't see how this is going to prove anything. And a certain amount of people, they may disagree with me. But when it comes down to it, Rolly Romero, even though he, punches very, very hard, he punches like a mule kicks, I don't think that it's to the degree to where he's really going to be able to threaten Gervonta Tank Davis. Some people may disagree with me. But when I just take a look at Rolly Romero, I think all in all that he's very physically gifted when we talk about his punching power. But when we talk about almost everything else, his footwork, his his flat-footedness when it comes down to it, his slow feet, when you talk about his chin being wide up in the air, him fighting very, very tall, him being easily hittable, him not having A-grade defense, him not really even having B-grade defense, I don't see how Rolly Romero in any way beats Gervonta Tank Davis. I don't see how he beats him in any way. This is, in my opinion, one of those fights where a lot of people, they're going to really try to hype it up. But just like the Mario Barrios fight, the Mario Barrios fight, in my opinion, was at least a decent fight because Mario at least had a little bit of size over Gervonta and he had a little bit of decent power. So you knew overall that maybe Mario was going to give him at least some problems. And there were certain problems overall that he certainly did give Tank Davis. I give Tank Davis a lot of credit for that performance. But once again, let's be real, Mario Barrios is never going to be a future Hall of Famer. And Rolly Romero, is no offense to him, but this dude is one of the most unskilled boxers that I've seen at the 135-pound division. I'm not even sure if this guy would beat a Ryan Garcia, and I've never been that high in Ryan Garcia. In my opinion, if you were to ask me what chance would I give Rolly Romero to beat Gervonta Tank Davis, I would almost give him a 0% chance. I would almost give him a 0% chance to beat Gervonta Tank Davis. That's how little of a chance I actually give him. And some people may disagree. I don't think that this is a great fight. In my opinion, a great fight is a fight overall that is at least a 70-30 matchup. So even the Mario Barrios fight, I wouldn't necessarily call it a great fight, but you can at least argue that that was a very good fight. That it was a fight worth watching. This, in my opinion, is not even a fight worth watching. And it's no offense against Gervonta Tank Davis. Once again, I think the kid is an exceptional talent, but it's getting to the point in your career to where it's like, dude, are you really going to start facing these A-grade fighters? And I know a certain amount of people, they say that Gervonta Tank Davis, that he's being avoided by all these guys. That's a bunch of horse shit. It's no offense against Gervonta Tank Davis, but this dude has been selling a lot of wolf tickets for a very, very long time. I mean, when are you actually going to face one of these A-grade guys? Gervonta, he talks all this shit. He says that he wants to face Teofimo and Devin Haney and all these boys. He even said at one point in time that he'd face Josh Taylor because apparently he said that he knew he could knock him out. Where's that same energy? A couple years ago after the Regis Prograis fight, he said that he knew that he'd be able to knock out Josh Taylor. All of a sudden, Josh Taylor beats Jose Ramirez. And I'm not saying that Gervonta Tank Davis would not have a decent chance against Josh Taylor. I think that'd be a very great fight. I think that could go either way. But when it comes down to it, all of a sudden, where's that energy? When all of a sudden is Gervonta Tank Davis going to face Josh Taylor? How come he has not called out any of the elites at 140 pounds? And then you call out Keith Thurman, which, I had a feeling that maybe he was not 100% serious about. But Keith Thurman is a dude, even though I think that that would be a good win, even if Gervonta Tank Davis were able to beat him, let's be real. Keith Thurman has not fought in 2 years. And on top of that, he lost his last fight. And he has had a bunch of injuries throughout the past, I don't know how many years. Even with that, though, I would still have to give Gervonta Tank Davis a hell of a lot of credit because I still think Keith Thurman would still be a decent fighter, and I think that he would come prepared. But why would you not try to call out a Terrence Crawford or an Errol Spence Jr. or a Yordenis Ugas or a Sean Porter, someone who's been decently active? I mean, come on, man. I like Gervonta Tank Davis as a fighter. I think that he's an exceptional talent. But this Rolly Romero fight, I mean, this fight, in my opinion, just to put it bluntly, I'm not trying to hate on anybody or anything like that. But just to put it logically and objectively, this is not a fight. This is not a fight. All this is basically is putting a Chihuahua in the ring with a pit bull. It's not going to come out when it comes down to it. The Chihuahua is going to have no chance against that pit bull. Once he gets in the ring against Gervonta Tank Davis, he is going to get completely ragdolled. And once again, I understand that Rolly Romero, I understand that he has a lot of power. But when you take a look at the skills that Gervonta Tank Davis has and the power that he also has, I don't see how Rolly Romero has a chance against Gervonta. I really don't see it. Because I don't think that he can walk him down very well. And even if Gervonta Tank Davis decides to brawl with him, the only way I could possibly see Gervonta Tank Davis losing this fight is if he gets really stupid and he tries to go in there and he doesn't keep his hands up. He gets a little bit too cocky and he does not take Rolly Romero seriously. And Rolly Romero is able to hit him with something or is able to hit him repeatedly. And Gervonta Tank Davis maybe did not take his training seriously. But I don't think that he's going to do that. I think that he is going to take his training very seriously. We'll see, because Gervonta Tank Davis, he has had some motivational issues, I believe, in the past. That's why sometimes I believe that he has a problem with his stamina. But I don't know if he's going to do that this time. We'll see what happens. Rolly Romero, I think that he's going to make Gervonta very motivated, because Rolly Romero, he talks a lot of shit. That, personally, in my opinion, I don't think he's going to be able to back it up. I think Gervonta Tank Davis is going to kill this dude. Once again, this is just me personally. I know a certain amount of people, they're going to say, oh, you're just hating on this fight. Well, I don't really think that this is a good fight. I think that basically what this is basically like bringing a calf in for the slaughter. That's really all this is. All right? Basically making mincemeat of Rolly Romero. I don't see how Rolly Romero, I don't see any possible way, unless he gets lucky and Gervonta Tank Davis maybe does not take him seriously. I don't see how Rolly Romero is going to beat Gervonta Tank Davis. I just don't see it. And once again, I like Gervonta, but it's getting to that point to where it's like, all right, dude, you have over 20 fights in your career. When the hell are you going to start facing some of these A-grade fighters? When it comes down to it. Now, some people overall may say, well, you're not saying the same thing about Ryan Garcia or some of these other guys. Right, but Ryan Garcia, I don't even think he has 20 fights on his resume. And Ryan Garcia, in his last fight against Luke Campbell, it certainly wasn't an A-grade fighter, but it was an improvement overall for what he had in his last couple of fights. And Devin Haney was the same, even though he fought kind of a wore-down Jorge Linares. At least it was an improvement in competition compared to what he usually faces. So when it comes down to it, I'm not necessarily going to judge them for their last fights. But Gervonta, we know overall that at least it looks like you're an A-grade fighter. But I need to see you in the ring with those A-class fighters. Rolly Romero, beating the shit out of this dude, what is that going to prove? That you're more powerful than this guy, or that overall that you can knock out a brawler? I mean, come on, man. This dude has like a C-class skill set. Rolly Romero, when I watch him fight, like this dude literally looks like a poor man's version of Adrian Broner. That's how bad he looks. Take a look at him in his last fight. It is what it is. Anyways, that's pretty much all I got to say on this fight. I'm a little bit disappointed in this fight because I don't think Rolly Romero is a good fight. I don't think Rolly Romero, this is my opinion, I don't think that he beats any of the top welterweights there. The top lightweights there. I don't think that he beats any of them. I don't think that he beats Vasily Lomachenko. I don't think that shit. I think Rolly Romero against that one Japanese fighter, Nakatani, I think is his name, that Vasily Lomachenko just recently knocked out. I think Rolly Romero would have a tough time against him, to be quite honest with you. I don't think Rolly Romero, I don't think that he can beat Ryan Garcia, and I'm not super huge on Ryan Garcia. I don't think he can beat Teofimo. I don't think he can beat Devin Haney. I don't think he can beat Vasily Lomachenko. I don't think that he can beat Gervonta Tank Davis. I don't think he can beat any of those guys. And Rolly Romero, in my opinion, I think we're going to see very, very quickly that he's probably going to end up as a C-class fighter. Maybe a B-class fighter if he can improve his skill set. This, in my opinion, this is an even worse fight than the Mario Barrios fight. And that's saying a lot because Mario Barrios, in my opinion, he certainly was no A-grade fighter. All you have to do is take a look at his fight against Akhmedov, and, that basically tells you the level of Mario Barrios. It is what it is. Even though Akhmedov, of course, he's a decently skilled fighter, but Mario Barrios, he's not going to defeat anyone elite at 140. He's not going to do that. He's not going to beat them. It is what it is. Anyways, that's really about all I have to say for this fight. You know, I think actually that this is somewhat a disappointing news because I was hoping that Gervonta Tank Davis maybe would have a decent matchup. I think a Jose Ramirez would have been a decent fight, a Regis Prograis fight. I think that that would have been acceptable. Maybe even an Adrian Broner. But a Rolly Romero, in my opinion, this dude, this dude, in my opinion, does not even have a 10% chance against Gervonta Tank Davis. Because I don't see how Gervonta Tank Davis, Rolly Romero, he can talk all that shit that he wants. He can say that he has all this power. Can you even get to Gervonta Tank Davis? Can you cut the ring off against him? Even if he goes to the inside, can you hit him consistently? I don't think he can. Gervonta Tank Davis is too defensively responsible. I think that Gervonta Tank Davis, that he's way too powerful. And Rolly Romero, man, he just has so many holes in the skill set. And this is not a division, like this is not the heavyweight division where Deontay Wilder, to where, he's so tall and he has that reach overall and he knows how to utilize it and he has that one-punch knockout power. And this is heavyweight, to where maybe you can get away with that because some of the other heavyweights, their skill set is very limited. You can't get away with that there. Those 135-pounders, extremely skilled. Some of the most skilled fighters on the planet. And Rolly Romero, he says overall that he's the dwarf slayer and all this other bullshit, against Gervonta Tank Davis, and that Davis is too short. I promise you that Davis is going to knock this dude out within 3 to 6 rounds. I promise you that. Because there's just nothing that Rolly Romero brings to the table besides power. He has nothing else. There's nothing else. He does not have a good jab. He does not know how to utilize his reach. He has horrible feet. He has horrible balance when it comes down to it. He has horrible defense. And to be real with you, this is really, in all honesty, a horrible fight. I don't see how Rolly Romero, I don't see how he wins against Gervonta Tank Davis. I think that if this were Ryan Garcia versus Rolly Romero, I think then maybe it would have been an interesting fight. But the reason why then it would have been an interesting fight is because I don't see Ryan Garcia as an A-grade fighter. Gervonta Tank Davis is, he's pretty much, he's kind of on that level of a Terrence Crawford. I'm not going to necessarily say that because Terrence has unified a division completely, and all in all, he's proved to me at least that maybe he can beat debatable A-class fighters. But it's kind of a similar problem with Terrence Crawford. I like Terrence Crawford. I have love for Terrence Crawford. But I got to see you face those A-grade fighters. And, thankfully, Terrence Crawford, he's finally facing Sean Porter, so we'll see what happens with that. But when it comes down to the overall, this fight right here, man, all this fight is a lamb coming in for the slaughter. Or coming in to get slaughtered. That's all this fight is. I do not see any chance of Rolly Romero beating Gervonta Tank Davis. Any chance. And no chance of this fight happening. No chance of Rolly Romero possibly beating Gervonta Tank Davis. So it is what it is. We'll see what happens. But anyways, hopefully after this fight, we get to see Gervonta Tank Davis against somewhat of a higher caliber fighter. I would love to see him against Jose Ramirez, maybe even a Mikey Garcia. But I doubt that Mikey Garcia would take that fight because I don't think that he's interested in facing anyone A-grade unless their name would be a Manny Pacquiao or maybe an Earl Spence, a fight to where really he could cash out. Once again, Mikey Garcia, to me, he does not look very serious about boxing anymore. He has not looked very serious about boxing for the past few years. But it is what it is. Anyways, that's really about it for today. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll talk to you all later.